Go to the hospital by yourself. I'm definitely not helping you anymore. I'm Patricia, currently 9 months pregnant. It's my first pregnancy, and while I'm nervous, I'm genuinely happy about growing our family. My husband David works a corporate job with weekends off. However, he never helps with household chores or shopping. That's because he spends almost every weekend at his in-laws' house. He doesn't have a specific reason for his visits, but loves his parents-in-law, and since his house isn't too far, he goes there weekly. Since becoming pregnant, I've been careful not to lift heavy things. But when I need to buy heavy items, a friend accompanies me shopping. My daily schedule starts with waking up, preparing breakfast, and sending David off to work. Then I finish the household chores and go shopping. After returning home, I prepare dinner, and only then do I get some time to relax. Since going on leave, I picked up a new hobby, blogging. Every day, I post diary entries with pictures of meals I've prepared, the sky, and flowers blooming in the garden. I get a fair amount of comments, and this hobby time has become the highlight of my day. I'm home. While preparing dinner, David comes back. He always throws his bag and jacket on the sofa, so I pick them up and hang them. Welcome back. It's meatloaf tonight. That's so. I'll take a shower first. David says this indifferently and heads to the bathroom. After 3 years of marriage, he no longer offers words of appreciation. I wonder if this is normal for married couples, but I've given up. When David comes back to the dining room in his pajamas, I pour him a drink and offer it. Where's that beer? David says, seeing the water I offered. Oh, I forgot to buy it today. I'll get it tomorrow. What? Then go buy it now. David becomes visibly upset. Words for a pregnant woman, I retort, irritated. Why don't you go yourself? I don't want to move around too much with my big belly. He gets even more angry and shouts back. It's Patricia's fault for forgetting. It's your mistake, so Patricia should go. Besides, pregnancy isn't an illness. Even Mom said you should move around to build strength. Knowing David wouldn't calm down, I reluctantly head to the supermarket. At the supermarket, I run into Susan, who lives nearby. Oh, good evening. Oh, did you forget something too? I had to rush out because I ran out of mayonnaise, Susan says cheerfully, lifting my spirits. David told me to buy beer. He should have gone himself. Right. I said the same, but he wouldn't listen. It's tough for you, Patricia. Susan and I walked part of the way home together before parting ways. When I return from the supermarket, David is lying on the sofa, laughing while watching TV, leaving his dinner plates as they were. You're slow, fatty. Hurry up with the beer. Irritated by David's complaining, I silently hand him the beer and start cleaning up. Calling a pregnant woman fat? I wanted to retort, but knowing it would only start another shouting match, I chose to ignore him. After dinner, I take a shower and head to the bedroom. The next day, David acts as if nothing happened. He has the convenient ability to forget everything by sleeping. However, I couldn't forget his harsh words and ignored him. Was with a bad mood from the morning. Don't you know how to appreciate someone who's about to go to work? I wanted to say this was all directed at David, but ended up just sighing. and sending him off. Take care. I don't bother with dinner tonight. Bye. Without explaining why he didn't need dinner, David quickly left. Afterward, I finish my chores and go shopping, remembering I'm eating alone today, and decide to keep it simple. At night, surprised by David's unexpected return, I was about to eat the simple dinner I made. I'm home. Welcome back. But didn't you say you didn't need dinner tonight? Oh, the dinner meeting got canceled. I'm hungry. There's food, right? I thought I was alone today, so I only made enough for myself. Hearing this, David gets angry again. What? You couldn't think that I might come back? Really stupid? He says this and goes to the dining room, becoming even more upset after seeing my dinner. Patricia, I can't believe you can eat such food. Don't waste my salary. Today was just for me, so I made something simple. You shouldn't talk like that. Patricia, why don't you learn to cook from Mom? I've always thought Patricia's cooking was terrible. Every chance he gets, David compares me to his mother-in-law, Linda. Doesn't he know comparing someone can hurt their feelings? I won't eat this kind of meal. Go buy something. His words stun me again. What does he think I am? I've already showered today. It's not happening. Go yourself. Fine. Forgot the booze yesterday and forgot my meal today. You're the worst. I'm going back to my parents' home. With that, David leaves in his suit, alone but strangely relieved. The next day, as expected, a call from Linda. The complaint was, not making meals for David is a failure as a wife. That's domestic violence, isn't it? My explanation fell on deaf ears. I apologized anyway and hung up. Hearing Linda's nagging voice first thing in the morning brought my spirits down, so I decided to take it easy today. However, David will be coming back today. Considering yesterday's incident, I went shopping for more ingredients than usual, bought beer, and was determined not to let him complain today. I shortened my blog writing time and meticulously prepared to increase the number of dishes. The table was set as if for someone's birthday, and I was satisfied. This should keep him from complaining. I waited for David's return in the dining room, but he never showed. I tried calling his mobile phone, but no answer. An hour, then 2 hours passed, and I grew increasingly worried. Could he be at his in-laws' house? Calling his parents-in-law, they said he wasn't there. After several unanswered calls, it was getting late, and I was considering contacting the police when a drunken David finally came home. I'm back. I rushed to the entrance. There, David was lying down at the entrance. Hey, are you okay? When I spoke to him, shut up. Go away, he said, hitting the wall as he staggered toward the dining room. Trying to support him, he shook off my hand. Don't touch me. A fat and ugly woman like Patricia isn't my wife. And with that, he fell asleep in the hallway. Drunk or not, that was harsh. Why doesn't David consider others' feelings? Does he no longer see me as family? As I pondered, tears started to flow. I tried hard with the cooking, but it was pointless. Feeling miserable, I ate dinner alone. The next day, David woke up as if nothing happened. My head hurts. Drank too much. Patricia, don't just leave me lying in the hallway. You slept there on your own. Don't blame me. Patricia is my wife, aren't you? You should have carried me to the bedroom when I'm drunk. He acted as if it was all my fault. If you don't want dinner, at least let me know. Thanks to you, the food was wasted. And why didn't you answer your phone? When pressed, David responded without changing his expression. The dinner party from the day before yesterday just got moved to yesterday. I don't need to inform Patricia. And the food, it's always the terrible meals anyway. Couldn't answer the phone during the meal. Read the room. He dismissed everything, refusing to acknowledge any fault. I felt my feelings for David cooling. Better not expect anything from David. That way, I won't be hurt or suffer anymore. I convinced myself of this. I have the day off tomorrow, so I'm going to my parents' home from today. Staying with Patricia is just unpleasant and boring. David continued to belittle me. By now, the word divorce began to cross my mind. My baby is almost due. I was looking forward to meeting them. Although I heard about the horrors of labor from friends, my excitement outweighed my anxiety. Neighbors greeted me with smiles, saying it was almost time, which made me happy. Let's go on a family trip, David suddenly suggested upon returning home. Huh? A family trip. Mom and Dad want to go. I was skeptical. Those parents-in-law suggesting a trip? What are they plotting? My relationship with the parents-in-law is rather poor. Like the complaint call the other day, they quickly blame me for anything related to David. Them inviting me on a trip? I honestly couldn't make sense of it. I'm close to my due date. A trip is out of the question. That's why I'm saying pregnancy isn't an illness. Mom and Dad are kindly suggesting it. But what if something happens? It'll be fine. The decision's been made. It's a 2-night, 3-day trip starting next week. Next week? That's my due date. It's impossible. Stop nagging. Get ready for next week, okay? David unilaterally declared and left the room. Confused about what to do, I consulted a friend the next day who also suggested it would be best to cancel. While trying to think of a reason to cancel, the day arrived. I'm feeling ill today, so I'll stay behind. It's not safe for the baby. I attempted to feign illness, but David was not convinced. You'll feel better just sleeping in the car. Hurry up and load the luggage. We're picking up Dad and Mom now. Seemed like I had no choice but to go. As I sat in the passenger seat, filled with anxiety, I felt something warm spreading on my legs. My water broke. Realizing this, I panicked and told David, "My water broke. We need to go to the hospital fast." At that, David finally stopped the car in shock. Seriously? Yes, really. Hurry to the hospital. The baby is coming. I grabbed a towel from the luggage and frantically wiped myself when the passenger door opened. Turning around, I saw David standing there with the door open. What? Hurry, we need to go to the hospital. No, get out. You're making a mess. I was stunned by David's unbelievable response. What? Hurry up and get out. It's dirty. He pulled my arm, forcing me out of the car. Dumbfounded by the incredulous event. We're supposed to be going on a trip now. Terrible timing. I'll go pick up Mom and Dad and leave Patricia here to go on the trip. Wait, take me to the hospital, please, the baby. Go to the hospital by yourself. With those words, he drove off. As I watched the car disappear, I felt like crying out of frustration, but I had no time for that. I had to get to the hospital somehow and pulled out my mobile phone. Just as I was about, Patricia, to call an ambulance, I turned to find Susan had witnessed the scene. Susan quickly drove me to the hospital, staying by my side and comforting me. I was relieved to have met Susan, and before I knew it, I was crying. Eventually, I safely arrived at the hospital. Susan stayed with me even as I was taken into the hospital. During this time, I resolved, I'm definitely not helping anymore. In the hospital and during the labor pains, Susan held my hand the entire time. She also managed to contact my parents, who arrived at the hospital room after a while. Susan then left the room to talk to my parents. As my labor pains intensified, about 3 hours into labor, my mobile phone kept ringing. My parents checked, and it was David, receiving the phone from my parents with a grimace. I answered on speakerphone. Help! David sounded panicked, but I was in no state to talk, nor did I want to, so I quickly hung up. The phone rang repeatedly, but I ignored all the calls. My parents looked ready to throw the phone, so they turned it off for me. As the labor pains came closer together and intensified, I was moved to the delivery room. Hours later, I safely gave birth to a healthy baby. Outside the delivery room, my parents and Susan were waiting, and seeing their faces, I felt relieved and drifted off. When I woke up, I was back in my room with my parents beside me. My parents asked, "Are you okay?" Too exhausted to get up. My dad looked like he was about to cry, but my mom comforted him. It's like this after giving birth. Seeing them, I smiled. Where's the baby? The baby was undergoing post-birth exams and would be back soon, they told me. However, Susan was not there. My parents informed me that Susan had left. I owed so much to Susan for being there. I planned to thank her first thing after being discharged, a plan I shared with my parents. When I turned on my mobile phone to announce the birth to friends, I was shocked by the sheer number of missed calls from David. The volume of calls was frightening, but I had no interest in what he wanted, so I closed the screen. After telling my friend about the birth, she came to visit, offering congratulations. This friend, being my closest confidant, I decided to share the entire ordeal. Maybe it's time for a little payback, was outraged. Rest easy and don't worry about a thing. After a while, she returned home. My parents had heard about the situation. What are you planning to do moving forward? From Susan. When I shared my decision to divorce, they understood and agreed it was the best course of action. I would be returning to my parents' home after giving birth, and they promised to prepare a room for me before my discharge. David had come to the hospital wanting to see me since I wasn't answering his calls, but I had requested the hospital staff not to let him in, so he was turned away. The next day, Susan visited me with some fruit. Susan! I was so happy to see her that I called out her name loudly. Oh, you seem to be feeling better already, but you still need to rest. Your body has been through a lot. Susan's usual gentle tone comforted me, and as I accepted the fruit, I thanked her again. Susan, thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done without you. As I expressed my gratitude, Susan shook her head and smiled. I'm just glad both you and the baby are safe. I only drove the car. No, I can't thank you enough. Once I'm discharged and settled, I'd like to properly thank you. Susan smiled warmly. I'll look forward to it then, and replied, Oh, by the way, I told my husband about what happened. He was furious too. Hearing Susan's words, I could somewhat imagine what had happened to David. Is that so? I'm sorry for causing you trouble, for everything. Don't worry about it. It's about time he learned who he's working for. We can't let this slide. It was the first time I heard Susan speak in anger. Turns out, Susan is the wife of the CEO of the company David works for. I didn't know this when we first moved in and went to greet them, but as we started running into each other at the supermarket and the department store, we naturally became friends. It was only after we started having coffee together that I had the chance to meet her husband and learned about his job. David didn't know this because he didn't bother to come with me for the moving in greetings and doesn't do neighborly visits. Also, Susan had, It's better he doesn't know, as I don't want his attitude to change just because of our status, told me. Every time I saw David taking advantage of me during my pregnancy, shall I talk to my husband? Susan had offered to talk to her husband about it, but I had declined. Now, it seems Susan had reached her limit with this situation. So that's why I've been getting so many calls from David. Susan, I'm sorry for worrying you. I don't even know what to say. Tears came to my eyes as Susan expressed her anger on my behalf. Seeing me tear up, Susan's face softened, and she smiled kindly. After all, you're a precious friend of mine. I can't stay silent when someone important to me is treated like this. Hearing her words made us both tear up even more. David's calls continued afterward. I also received constant messages on WhatsApp, but I ignored them all. Having decided on divorce, I felt no attachment to David anymore and focused on how to be happy with my baby. As I was packing up for discharge, a friend visited me again. Take a look at this. She handed me her mobile phone. Curious, I looked at the screen to see a video. What's this? What happened? That had gone viral on social media. My friend, a popular social media influencer with over 500,000 followers, had posted about David's behavior. A follower who happened to record a video of me being forced out of the car and David leaving me behind with harsh words had sent her the footage. She spread it with my face blurred out. The video quickly went viral, leading to David's identification, including his home and workplace, resulting in social backlash. Wow, it's really blown up. I was astonished. This level of retribution is deserved, and my friend crossed her arms. Indeed, it was all David's doing. Furthermore, when David's friends questioned him, I had promised to go on a trip with my parents, so I had no choice, he responded, which redirected some of the backlash towards my parents-in-law. The story even spread through the neighborhood of my in-laws' house, becoming a topic on social media. Then, as we were talking, my phone rang. It was a call from Linda. Speak of the devil. As I said this, my friend leaned over to peek at my mobile phone. You should answer and give them a piece of your mind. But I felt It was a waste of energy to even engage, so I decided to ignore it. Before I knew it, my phone's missed call log was filled with calls from David and Linda. The hospital nurses had seen the SNS post, and knowing the truth, they firmly took my side. No matter how many times David and the parents-in-law tried to visit or call the hospital, they never got through to me, thanks to the nurses' intervention. As my discharge day approached, I was worried about being ambushed upon leaving. My parents assured me it would be fine, but I feared for the baby's safety if they tried to force their way through. This concern proved to be unnecessary. On the day of my discharge, as my parents and I were about to leave the hospital with the baby, "Patricia!" I heard David shout and the parents-in-laws yelling. At that moment, I was surrounded by men in suits. Confused, one of them opened a car door for me. "Please, get in safely. We've been hired as bodyguards by Mrs. Susan, the CEO's wife," and said. My parents seemed to be in on it. "See? Told you it'd be all right." Smiling. David and the parents-in-law were intimidated by the bodyguards and didn't try to force their way over. Susan to go to such lengths for me. I felt a deep sense of gratitude towards Susan. My parents, "We should visit to express our thanks properly," also said. Life back at my parents' home went smoothly, but the attempts to contact me from David and the parents-in-law continued. Even after sending a signed divorce petition, they showed no willingness to comply. Once, the parents-in-law called my parents, and my dad handled it, but found them unreasonable. Once Patricia married David, how we treat her is our business. Outraged by these words, my dad scolded them, and they quickly hung up, intimidated. When I consulted with my parents about settling this, we decided to hire a lawyer to handle the divorce on my behalf. A lawyer friend of my dad agreed to help after hearing our situation and was informed of the SNS video and everything that had happened. The lawyer contacted David, who was initially shocked and flustered, but then became defiant. "This is a family matter. We can solve it through discussion. No need for a lawyer." However, when the lawyer stated, "As I've been hired, I am the representative. Any future contact with Patricia should go through me. It's up to her to decide if she needs a lawyer or not." David fell silent. Though David was reluctant to accept the divorce, the prospect of a trial and the potential delay in divorce proceedings led him to begrudgingly agree with faced with the possibility of court action. When the topic of compensation and child support came up, "I haven't even met the child, and I don't want to, so it's none of my concern. I'm not paying child support. Plus, I've done nothing wrong, so there's no need for me to pay any compensation." His illogical arguments persisted, but the lawyer methodically explained the legal aspects, to which he still didn't agree. "Well then, we'll see you in court." At this point, the parents-in-law present during the discussion hurriedly agreed. Hearing the lawyer's report, I felt ashamed to have been married to such a man. Staying in touch with Susan, I shared the updates with her. "Maybe you should take his severance pay, or better yet, seize his assets." She joked, making me realize Susan was not someone to cross. Later, the lawyer, "He wants to apologize in person one last time. What would you like to do?" asked. I wanted to draw a line under the matter, so I agreed to speak over the phone with the lawyer present. On the day, with my parents and the lawyer by my side, I made the call. "Finally decided to call, huh? If you apologize now, I'll forgive you. Come back. I'll remarry you. The house is a mess without you, and I might get fired from my job. The neighbors look at me coldly. It's all your fault. Take responsibility. You idiot can't do anything right. His barrage of accusations made me not want to speak at all, and I remained silent until, hey, are you listening? Have you become deaf as well as dumb? Truly worthless. It was then I spoke for the first time. We're recording everything, so this will be saved as evidence. Goodbye. David panicked suddenly. What? That's low. It was just a joke. Sorry. I'm in trouble without you. Let's reconcile. We were happy, weren't we? We can make it work. After hearing that, I hung up. I sent the recording to the lawyer. Please use this too. The lawyer sighed, hopelessly irredeemable, and said, like the lawyer, my parents were beyond anger and settled into disbelief. I sighed too, but this added to the evidence for the divorce. Eventually, the divorce went through. The settlement and child support were decided as we wanted, and that issue was resolved. David was indeed fired after the president, who heard about the situation from Susan, got angry. The president, known for being a family man, declared that anyone who couldn't value family didn't belong in his company and dismissed him without question. Jobless, David couldn't make the house payments and had to return to his parents' house. Trying to find re-employment became difficult due to the notoriety from the video, and he was only able to earn through part-time jobs. I heard that the in-laws' house also began receiving cold looks from the neighbors, some of whom were Susan's friends, making their situation awkward. The social repercussions continued, perhaps more challenging to live with than if he had been legally punished. Once things settled down, I visited Susan's house with my child and parents to express our thanks. Susan and her husband were delighted to see the baby and showed great affection. Since then, my mom became friends with Susan, and my dad found common ground with her husband, making us all close. Surprisingly, Susan and her husband's son was close to my age, leading to an unexpected meeting. Years later, no one could have imagined that we would actually become family.